Welcome to another edition of Ask GCN-ything, where quite literally using various social media platforms, you can ask us anything you'd like. So without further ado, let's crack on with the very first question. And this comes from the comments section from Malono, who asks, I was going down a mountain and went around a corner that wasn't even sharp, and I ended up on the other side of the road skidding in the sand. How can I stop this from happening? Well, firstly, thanks very much for your question, Malono, but it sounds very much like you've come into that corner just a little bit too hot, or to put it another way, carrying way too much speed. That's why your momentum has essentially thrown you right the way to the outside of the bend. Luckily, you stayed upright and into the sand and you had a bit of a skid. Another reason is perhaps that you got your line choice completely wrong. That could be another thing that happened there. Now, getting descending right is a really fundamental key skill that can take quite a while to get dulled in. So, unsurprisingly, we have a video designed just for you entitled How to Descend Like a Pro.
Your line choice on descent is really important. On normal sized roads, you want to make the corners as wide as possible. That means entering wide, clipping the apex, and exiting wide as well. You have to pay attention to other road users though. You can only use the full width of the road if you can see a long way ahead and you're on a single track road like this one. If there are lines down the middle, just don't cross them. It isn't worth the risk.
From descending to sprinting, and this question on Twitter from Francis Paulin, at Paulin_Francis, who asked, when I sprint max, my back wheel sometimes loses traction. Any tips on improving body position back to maximise traction? Well, thanks for your question, Francis. And this can be quite a common occurrence when sprinting, which can happen for a number of reasons. Now, the first reason, which you have kind of alluded to, is that you've got your body weight distributed too far forward on the bike. So when you accelerate and put power through the bike, rather than keep the back wheel down, the back wheel skips around. So what you need to try and do is essentially using your arms is gently, and do this only incrementally, push your body weight further back till you get the balance on the bike right. And that's going to take a little bit of practice, but after a while you should get it dialed in without too many problems. And another reason, which is quite common again, especially amongst people new to the sport, is that the pressure in the tyres is way too hard, causing the back wheel to skip. Now, alternatively, you could watch this video, or in fact, in addition, you could watch this video, where Dan chats to the finest sprinter in the world about sprinting and gets his 5 sprinting tips.
Right, last one, tip number 5 for any budding sprinters. I think it's a similar one. I think it's what I'm most famous for, and that's keeping low. And to be fair, I always did it naturally. I don't know if it's from the track or just because I'm short legs and short and long bodied, but it's okay to view and do it now. How low we get is crazy. And there's a massive aerodynamic advantage there, you know. If you're like this, you're really closing the hole here. And if you're sprinting like this, you know, the big hole, the big gaping hole to bring in the air, you know. So keep low and you're going to accelerate through.
Time now for the rapid fire round. So first up we have this from Sean Matley. Hi GCN tweet. Hello Sean. Why do cycling teams have 9 riders and not 10? Well, teams have 9 riders purely for the Grand Tour. So the Vuelta a España, the Tour de France and the Giro d'Italia. And in fact, continental teams range from between 20 and 25 riders, and World Tour teams can have up to 30 riders amongst their roster, and actually can have several programs running at any one time. And the reason they have 9 riders for the tours is there's just the rules and regulations for the tours. Although I think in the future that might change. We might see some smaller teams to perhaps invite some more interesting racing. You never know, watch this space. Next up from Carl Adams, again on Twitter. It's a rest day at the Tour de France and the pros go for a ride. What is the distance and speed they ride, and could I keep up? Well, Carl, I don't know how fit you are, but just imagining you're kind of regular, pretty fit, I think you could keep up. They go pretty steady. They generally go for between an hour and 2 hours maximum. The ride I recently did with the Tinkoff team at the Tour de France was only 45-50 minutes, and we bowled along at a pretty slow speed of well under 20 miles an hour, 18 to 20 miles an hour, a brisk pace, just spinning the legs. So most people, to be honest with you, could keep up on a rest day ride, unless they went pretty hard on a mountain, which they rarely do. We've got this now from James Murray. Is it true you have to average 20 miles an hour before starting to ride as a Cat 4? as I can't average it. Well, James, to be honest with you, if you can't average 20 miles an hour, there's probably a little bit of work that you need to do, but it doesn't preclude you from racing, because actually immersing yourself in racing and jumping in at the deep end could actually help with your speed. But what I'd advise, if you can't average 20 miles an hour, is to try and incorporate some interval training into your training, which will help your strength and therefore your speed, and also go out for a ride with another group of riders who are perhaps a little bit better than you, and I think you'll find your speeds will improve. This question from Sean Dittrich: if TT bikes are more aero, why don't riders use them for flat group stages during the tours? Well, there's a couple of reasons for that. First and foremost, TT bikes have a really aggressive position, which, although aerodynamic, isn't particularly stable. So when you're on the tri-bars, it's okay going in a straight line, but if you're to try and maneuver and control and navigate that bike around a peloton, it would wreak absolute havoc. Add into the mix, you've got a disc wheel, which is, well, pretty rigid, pretty hard, pretty difficult to corner on, and a deep section front wheel generally as well, which easily catches the wind. It would be essentially be a recipe for disaster. So that's why we don't see TT bikes in the bunch. Now finally, this from Rick Hutton: where do people in the team car pee? Do they stop along the way? Well, you've answered your question. Generally they do stop along the way, but in a particularly hectic race, it has been known for team managers and mechanics to do a pee in a bidon. Now, two of you on Twitter have asked a very similar question in relation to a subject that I'm a particular expert at, and that is clipping in to your pedals. So we've got this from Fabio Cellini, all the way from Italy. Hey GCN, if I'm climbing uphill and I have to stop and unclip, how do I clip in again? Greetings from Italy. Smiley face. And we've got this from Eddie: I'm new to clipless and I've got a problem. How to clip in when starting uphill, or clip out when I'm near the top of a hill and I need to stop? Well, to be perfectly honest with you, rather than let me explain, although I am quite clearly an expert in this field, I'm going to leave it to Dan and Lasty to explain.
Start by working out which foot you'll have clipped in from a standing start and which foot you're going to clip in with. It does make sense to lead with your stronger leg so that when you push down on the pedal you can get away quicker, but it's worth noting that if you ride a lot of track, you're always going to want to lead with your left leg, because this pushes you up the track rather than down the track and off it like your right leg might.
Something I've literally just learnt just a couple of minutes ago. Now, the benefit of always leading off with exactly the same leg is that effectively you're only going to have to learn this clipping in technique on one side, which should hopefully mean the process only takes half the length of time. Matt's still not here yet, is he?
Who'd have thought he'd learnt in 46 years?
Yeah.
Finally, we have this question from Samuel Stasko, who asks, quite simply, should I stretch before and after a ride? Well, really, there's no definitive answer to this. It comes down to personal preference. But just to throw my hat in the ring, I always, especially during the latter part of my career, stretched before and after training and racing. And I really did get into the habit because I found that it benefited me, particularly after difficult training sessions with a really heavy workload and after difficult races where I found my legs would stiffen up. I thought that stretching, and I found that stretching actually helped minimize that sort of leg stiffness. Now, there's no research that suggests that stretching actually enhances your performance or improves your performance at all, but anecdotally, it does show that if you stretch before and after, it can reduce the risk of any muscle strains or injuries. Now, in this particular video, me and Dan take you through 5 stretches that are particularly good for cyclists, with additional tips from Cannondale Drapac's chiropractor, Matt Rabin. Take a look at this.
Now, as we've already mentioned, cyclists have notoriously short hamstrings, and there's a reason for this, and that is that as you're pedaling, you never fully extend them as you're going around the pedal stroke. So it's a really important one to focus on post-ride. Matt's going to demonstrate one now. What he's doing is keeping his feet shoulder width apart, trying to keep his back and trunk as straight as he possibly can as he bends down and reaches towards the floor. What you do want to do is try not to put too much pressure here on the lower back, and in fact, if you've got any discomfort there are a number of different ways of stretching your hamstrings. You can even put your leg up onto some kind of sofa or stool, or alternatively, you can simply get down on the floor and do the stretch there.
And remember, no bobbing. Well, that's it for another week of Ask GCN-ything. Thanks ever so much for your questions, and please do keep them coming in the comments section below this video, on Twitter, or on Facebook, and we'll do our very best to answer as many as we can. Now, for some more how-to action, how about clicking just up here for how to find your maximum sprint power. And for another how-to, just down here, for how to build your cycling confidence, click down here. And for how to buy this particularly cool t-shirt, if you don't mind me saying so, how about clicking probably about here? And to subscribe to GCN, how about clicking about here? Or maybe just here on the globe. It's absolutely free. Don't forget to like this video, tell your mates, and share it.